Coming up today, 500 South Koreans have been placed on a shortlist to take part in next month's planned reunions of families separated by the Korean War. The final list of 100 will be finalized by early next month. In a worrying development, satellite photos show new activity at the plutonium production facility at North Korea's main nuclear site. Plus, the South Korean economy added far fewer jobs in August than it did the month before due to sluggish consumption and the lingering effects of the MERS outbreak. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Wednesday, the 9th of September. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. And we start with the latest on the preparations for next month's reunions for war-separated families. South Korea's Red Cross has randomly selected 500 South Koreans who have made it onto a preliminary shortlist to take part in the highly anticipated event at North Korea's Mount Kumgang resort. The names were picked out from roughly 66,000 South Koreans who have registered with the government. Red Cross officials say the candidates will be prioritized according to their age and health conditions, with 100 making the final list that will be submitted to North Korea early next month. The reunions will be held from October 20th to the 26th. Suspicious activity has been spotted in two areas of North Korea's main nuclear site that are key to the production of plutonium for building nuclear weapons. Lee Ji-won reports.
According to satellite images and analysis from U.S.-based North Korea monitoring website 38 North, trucks loaded with cargo appear to have been going in and out of a building at the Yongbyon Nuclear Research Center that houses a 5-megawatt reactor. Another image shows vehicle tracks and trucks around the radiochemical laboratory complex. This is where plutonium is turned into the raw material for building nuclear weapons. 38 North says it's impossible to determine the exact reason for the activity, but one possible explanation could be that North Korea is unloading spent fuel rods from the reactor for the purpose of producing new plutonium. It says a full core of spent fuel rods at the reactor could produce enough plutonium for up to 2 additional nuclear bombs. The website says the latest developments are concerning and should be monitored closely by the international community. It's thought North Korea has collected enough plutonium-based fissile material from Yongbyon over the years to arm up to 10 small nuclear bombs. Lee Ji-won, Arirang News.
China has sent a message of congratulation to North Korea to celebrate the regime's establishment. But one analyst seems to think there may be more to the gesture than meets the eye. Connie Kim reports.
China's leader has sent a congratulatory message to the leader of North Korea to mark the 67th anniversary of the founding of the North Korean regime. The North Korea Central News Agency reported Wednesday the message was sent by Chinese President Xi Jinping and Premier Li Keqiang to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and his top aides. The message said China will seek stable, long-term bilateral ties with the North and will contribute to efforts to bring about peace and security in the region. The message also mentioned the ties formed by previous leaders as well as the close geographical location of the two countries. China is North Korea's closest traditional ally, but bilateral ties have been frayed following Pyongyang's nuclear test in 2013 and a series of missile tests. The message has widely been seen as a friendly gesture, but one North Korea expert has implied there may be more behind Beijing's recent moves toward the north. Doug Bandu of the Cato Institute said in a recent World Post article recounting his discussion with a Chinese scholar, the most important issue between North Korea and China is denuclearization. The scholar says Pyongyang should make an effort to resolve the matter and proposes trilateral talks between the North, the U.S., and China as one way to address the issue. However, if North Korea does not agree to that, the scholar said cutting all support to the regime and imposing additional sanctions could be another option. Other issues worrying Beijing, according to the scholar, are North Korea's economic development, bilateral trade, and the influx of North Korean defectors. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
A crane barge is due to arrive in waters off Korea's southern coast to salvage a fishing boat that capsized last weekend, leaving 10 people dead and 8 people still unaccounted for. According to the Jeju Coast Guard, the 150-ton barge departed from Jeju Island this morning and is expected to arrive at the accident site near Chuja Island at around 1 p.m. Korea time, about 1 hour from now. Officials plan to start raising the vessel once they arrive, but the plan could change depending on the weather conditions in that area. Now, families of the victims will observe the work from a nearby boat. The search and rescue operation is still ongoing for the 8 missing passengers. The number of new jobs added in Korea dipped in August for the second time this year, after 3 straight months of surpassing 300,000. According to Statistics Korea on Wednesday, there were only 256,000 more jobs in August compared to the same month last year, and that's the lowest on-year growth since the global financial crisis. The figures dropped for the first time in May, following the outbreak of Middle East respiratory syndrome, but the number of workers has picked up since June. Experts say the recent downturn was caused by layoffs in the wholesale and retail sectors, which are still suffering from the impact of the MERS outbreak. And Korea's tourism industry is still feeling the effects of the MERS outbreak as well. It prompted prospective travellers to cancel trips here in their droves. Fortunately, experts expect the sector to recover by next month. Park Se-young tells us more.
Korea's tourism income has dropped over 10% in recent months, mainly due to the outbreak of Middle East respiratory syndrome. According to statistics released by the Bank of Korea, spending by foreign tourists in the first half of the year was $5.5 billion. This marks an 11% decline from the second half of 2014, when the total was $6.2 billion. It's the biggest drop since 2009, when the nation's tourism sector was hit by a weak Japanese yen. The MERS outbreak has also resulted in a 12% drop in the number of foreign tourists to Korea since it began in May. The number of Chinese visitors has been cut in half, from nearly 620,000 in May to 315,000 in June. Prior to that, the number of Chinese tourists had been on the rise. The number of Japanese visitors also dropped in the same period, from nearly 190,000 to just over 100,000. Although the number of inbound travelers bounced back to normal levels in August, most experts say it's a weak recovery for vacation season. Tourists are also spending less, slowing Korea's tourism growth. According to the nation's tourism account, the average spending per tourist this year up to August was roughly $1,200 per person, a 4.4% drop from last year. But the Korea Culture and Tourism Institute forecasts a recovery early next month, with Chinese airlines having restored the number of flights to Korea in time for China's 7-day National Day holiday from October 1st to 7th. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
Now, with a growing number of non-Koreans making a life for themselves here in Korea, there are now 30 districts in the country where more than 1 in 20 residents is a foreigner. The Ministry of Government Administration and Home Affairs said Wednesday that 1.74 million foreign residents live in Korea now, accounting for 3.4% of the total population. And that figure has more than tripled over the past 10 years. Seoul's Yongbyon district has the highest proportion of non-Koreans at 17.5%. 6 other districts had ratios of more than 10%, including Seoul's Gumcheong-gu district at 14% and Guro-gu at 13%. The World Bank is urging the U.S. Federal Reserve to hold off raising rates until the global economy is more stable. In an interview with the Financial Times on Tuesday, the World Bank's chief economist, Kaushik Basu, said the Fed would cause panic and turmoil in emerging economies if it raises rates in the next few weeks. The warning echoes similar statements from the International Monetary Fund. It also said a rate hike in September could have negative repercussions around the world. Analysts say a disappointing jobs report last month means the Fed's decision on whether to raise interest rates from near zero for the first time in 9 years is now too close to call. Now, the more data that emerges about China, the gloomier the outlook becomes for the world's second biggest economy. In fact, a growing number of analysts are beginning to believe China is now in graver trouble than once believed. Shin Se-min reports.
It appears the Chinese economy has a much higher chance of going into a dangerous downward spiral than many European countries that have gone through financial turmoil themselves in recent years. China's credit default swap premium, an indicator used to measure the credit worthiness of a country, has been rising fast. Just 5 months ago, in April, the CDS premium for China's 5-year foreign exchange stabilization bond was below the 100 mark. In recent weeks, however, the premium has been hovering in the 120 range, hitting 122.8 basis points late last month during China's recent market rout. That's much higher than the corresponding figures for some of Europe's most vulnerable economies, like Spain and Italy. The rise in the premium means investor uncertainty over the Chinese market is growing, fueled by the country's lower economic outlook and contracting trade numbers. The OECD says the outlook for China continues to deteriorate, with the composite leading indicator pointing more strongly to a loss of growth momentum. The indicator is designed to reflect turning points in economic activity. China's falling economic trend is seen most clearly on the trade front. China's imports plunged nearly 14% on year last month. Exports didn't fare much better, tumbling over 5%. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Now, with Europe continuing to grapple with a huge influx of refugees, Germany has called on other member nations to do more to tackle the crisis. This, as the European Commission is set to unveil a quota system for refugees on Wednesday that would ensure a fair distribution of 120,000 refugees across all 28 member states. German Chancellor Angela Merkel said the mandatory quota is an important first step, adding that the EU needs an open-ended system to share out those people with a right to asylum. The International Organization for Migration has revealed that almost 2,800 refugees have died so far this year attempting to cross the Mediterranean into Europe. That's 500 more deaths than the same period last year. A new study has shown that people who eat while they are on the go instead of stopping for a proper meal are more likely to stuff themselves later in the day. Researchers at the University of Surrey in Britain asked 60 women to eat a cereal bar under one of 3 different conditions: walking, watching TV, or having a conversation. Then the participants were presented with 4 different bowls of snacks containing chocolate, carrot sticks, grapes and potato chips. Now, those who ate their cereal bar while walking scoffed down around 5 times more chocolate than the others. The researchers say any form of distraction while eating can lead to unhealthy snacking later on. Now, depression is a serious mental illness that affects people all over the world, and it's a major social concern in Korea as well, as it's directly linked to the nation's growing suicide rate. To help sufferers, Korean researchers have developed a treatment that uses light instead of medication. Yongbyon reports.
It's a condition known as the disease of modern civilization. In Korea alone, depression affects more than 600,000 people. Although there are multiple causes, stress is known to be a major contributor. Recently, scientists at Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology, or KAIST, have developed a new type of light therapy that could improve people's stress levels. They tested the process by placing 2 rats in separate rooms, but forcing them to face each other the entire time. They made sure one of the rats was more dominant in their social hierarchy. After 10 days, the subordinate rat began to show signs of stress, such as avoiding the other rat. But when the researchers exposed the subordinate rat to certain wavelengths of light using laser beams, it showed improvement and began interacting again with the other rat.
We used the light to stimulate the left brain of the rat that was suffering from depression. Our results indicate that such method can help people overcome stress and depression.
Scientists say light triggers the brain to produce serotonin, the natural feel-good chemical inside the body, to help reduce the amount of stress in patients. They hope this finding will help them develop new medical equipment and clinical drugs to treat depression. Won Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
Well, that's all we have for now. Have a great day. We do hope to see you at the same time tomorrow. Until then, goodbye.